Before we wrap up with Max, though, we got to talk about Max. You and Stuart Mandel last week did an update on the Pac-12 media rights situation. We've seen some more stuff come out about that in the last week or so. Andrew Marchand from the New York Post had something very interesting on his podcast with John Oran, where Andrew basically said, "Watch Colorado," which I thought was an interesting nugget, because we've talked about those, we call them four corner schools. Sorry, New Mexico. I don't know if you guys saw Stuart's mailbag, but he got asked why New Mexico as a four corner state is being left out of that discussion. But
it's a good question.
So you guys mentioned that there'd been a discussion with the CW, but where does that stand right now? How much longer are we looking at for that to get done? And then if you are a current Pac-12 school, how are you feeling about how long it's taking?
I think that the update at this point is that we're talking late spring, early summer in terms of Pac-12 getting a deal done. It seems like on the Pac-12 side of the fence, there's not a lot of fear about members bailing on them during or at the end of this process. I think we all know that Brett Yormark has been ultra aggressive with this, and that I think at this point, when Andrew Marchand mentions watch Colorado, it's because I think Colorado's been pretty receptive to these conversations with the Big 12. What if we are leaving? Does the Big 12 make sense? How could they benefit if they bolt? I think Colorado and Arizona, frankly, are the ones that are probably worth watching there. But you kind of can't. That's right.
He's like, that's right, dude.
Okay, sure. Now I've lost my train of thought. Ari, what are your thoughts?
Sorry. I actually don't even remember what you were saying. I just heard Arizona. I went bang. You said that Arizona and Colorado are the ones.
Sonora Dog. What?
Yeah.
If you're the leadership of those schools, like, probably makes sense to sit back and wait and see what the final offer is going to be on this Pac-12 deal. Who are the partners? Is it an acceptable split in terms of linear and streaming? It's not as simple as just, is the money good enough? Obviously, right? Like, you have to actually feel good about the way that this TV deal is going to benefit your league for the rest of it. Whatever the term is, assuming it's more of a short-term thing. So that's the tension right now. Is Brett Yormark is going to keep hustling and keep trying to persuade them to flip. I don't think he wants to sit back and just wait 60 days and kind of be the life raft for these schools. I think he's going to try and make it happen, or go in other directions with expansion.
This is like the football coach that doesn't give up on the player who's committed to the other school. He's like, we're taking this all the way down to signing day.
It's like the guy. It's like, this girl keeps telling me she's going to break up with her boyfriend, but I don't know when that's going to happen.
Or
it's
if,
like,
or
is she
ever.
waiting for one more thing to go wrong? Like, I think she likes me, but it's just, they're kind of in that tough limbo right now. And I can't sit here and predict how that deal is going to, what the final shape of that deal is going to be. But, certainly these next few weeks and months, that's going to be on the radar. I think Big 12 may look to expand no matter what happens. And I think we know the Pac-12 is in a situation where it seems pretty logical you add at least San Diego State, but that there's a timeline to that's kind of parallel to the TV deal. So this stuff is just kind of in this uncomfortable limbo right now as George Kliavkoff tries to figure out a deal that's actually acceptable.
That feels like a lot of pressure. It really does.
Doesn't seem fun.
Because it doesn't look like Fox is in for them. Although I either Oren or Marchand said Fox is kind of hanging around, and if the money comes down to something that they're willing to spend, then that's a different story. But that's the problem. Is there's a magic money number, it sounds like, but there's also a magic exposure number, whether that's this much linear, this much streaming, and so is it a sliding scale, Max? Like, can you give more money and take less exposure? Or is there like a minimum threshold of you got to have some games on linear?
Yeah, it's a good question. And then, of course, like, if you're going to go in this direction of, like, say you are going to partner with like an Apple, like, how much are you willing to accept, it's just like we did in going to a paywall site, right? Like how much are you going to accept that fewer people are going to see it, but you think that it's the right kind of partner or whatever, right?
Right.
Like, so I think it's, there's that. And then you have to, do this on Apple's terms, which is partly why this process is taking so long. But ultimately, it's got to be a lot of linear games. It just does. I mean, and
because everybody else has a lot of linear games.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, that what the Big 12 has. They know. We don't know exactly how much of the Big 12 is going to be on linear. I imagine there's a significant bunch of games on ESPN Plus in this next deal, but Fox doesn't have that component. So anything that's on Fox or FS1 is on your cable or over the air. And then obviously the best games are still going to be ESPN games on ESPN. So they know that's kind of the minimum, I think.
But it's also bigger picture. Like it's not like Brett Yarmark. There's not a lot to negotiate here, right? I mean, It's not like, okay, Colorado, Arizona, we'll give you 40 a year if you come over or something like that. It's not, right. I mean, the number is what it is. Yeah. And so it's ultimately about like, do you buy the vision of Brett Yarmark so far, who, is an ideas guy who's trying to be very aggressive, trying to do a lot of different things the Big 12 just hasn't done in the past. Do you buy kind of where he's trying to take this thing over the rest of the decade? Or do you believe enough in sticking together? Obviously there's a league that really values their academic allegiances and all that kind of stuff. Do you feel like it's an okay enough deal to take a short-term thing and get through to the end of this decade, I suppose. If I think that's ultimately like kind of the part of the pitch here is like, do you like what we're doing and do you want to be part of it? Or do you want to stay put and accept whatever that deal ends up being and whatever the consequences are?
Well, we get to talk about this for a few more months. Despite it's crazy because like the Arizona president, he said a few times, we think it's going to be done by March. Then he comes back, no, later in the spring. And now it sounds like it go into the summer. So yeah, we're just going to have to keep checking back in on this deal because it doesn't appear there's any end in sight right now.